welcome to tonight's panel. Whether you're watching it live or watching it back, you're very welcome, and we're looking forward to this discussion. It's a topic that's difficult for a lot of guys, especially if you've been through the topic of miscarriage or baby loss, but it's an important one to have. So let's get on with things. So today's panel is called The Silent Grief, a men's panel on miscarriage and baby loss. But before we get into it, I just want to do a quick disclaimer that obviously, as with everything on the Nexus Fertility platform, it does not replace professional help. It is here for supportive purposes. So if you feel like you need additional support, please talk to your clinic, your doctor, or another professional in the support certification. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump straight into it. And I'm going to introduce three amazing guys that have agreed to come on the panel and discuss, like I said, such a difficult topic. So we'll go with Ollie first. Ollie, can you please introduce yourself and just give a brief background on what brought you to the panel?
Sure. Thanks very much, Kieran, for hosting us for a start. As you say, a really important topic, and great that you guys once again are providing a platform for these sorts of conversations. So thank you to you initially. As Kieran said, I'm Ollie. I am currently based up in Shrewsbury in Shropshire with my wife and my 2-year-old daughter. I come to the panel, I guess, following a miscarriage with mine and my wife's first pregnancy, which was in 2022. And that as an experience, how it shaped us as a family going forwards, and how it's opened my eyes to the world of miscarriage and how common it is. It sort of opened my eyes to seeing that occurring in friends and family, and so has then led to now some attempts to try and raise some money and awareness around miscarriage and supporting some of the fantastic organisations that are out there trying to help people through a very difficult time. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, buddy. And yeah, we'll get on to what you're doing at some point this evening. I expect it's a great thing. Toby, just a brief introduction, as I said, about what brought you to the panel.
Yeah, hi, I'm Toby. We've been going through infertility for about 4 years, me and my partner Christina. We've had one successful round, but then unsuccessful in the miscarriage side of things, which was, again, quite a difficult time to go through. Obviously not knowing how to grieve something like that, which you don't encounter too often. We've been quite open with our journey and everything that we've been going through, and it's just trying to sort of spread the word really to let other people know that it's okay to talk. You're not on your own. There's lots of support out there in whichever way you take comfort from it, and hopefully we'll get to a happy ending at some point, whichever that may look like. But yeah, at the moment we're still going through it. Since 2022, but yeah, hopefully we're coming towards the end. Fingers crossed.
Cheers, mate. I know it's been a tricky time for you, and I really appreciate you being on the panel tonight. James, just a brief introduction, buddy.
Hey everyone. I'm James. Reason for me being here tonight is, I suppose, our situation was around baby loss, and a specific, I suppose, area of that, which is known as TFMR, which is termination for medical reasons. So we found out we were having a baby for the first time in June last year, and then at the 20-week scan found out that there were some severe abnormalities in the pregnancy with the baby, and had to make the decision to end the pregnancy, which is like a form of loss in its own category. Basically, it was quite late on. It was 23 weeks. So that's and it's an area of baby loss that is particularly stigmatized, really, and taboo because of the quite conscious and difficult decisions people have to make. So hopefully can share my experience and help any dads or expecting dads grieve along this journey, and just raise awareness of this form, I suppose, of baby loss.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, James. I think you've got it right there. It is kind of in its own sector, isn't it, in terms of baby loss? And I really appreciate you being here, and all three of you, because it's not an easy topic to discuss. But we're going to help guys that are listening tonight and in the future feel like they're not alone and they've got some support out there. So let's jump straight into it. I'm going to start with Ollie. So Ollie, with thinking about your own personal experience, why do you think like men's grief is so unseen, and why men don't talk about
it? Yeah, straight in. I think the first thing to acknowledge, I think, before we look at men specifically, is that often grief around miscarriage in general and baby loss is unseen. I think James used the word taboo, which is one that sort of crops up a lot around this topic, and it's often, miscarriages can often happen before you've told anyone about them, so they're sort of already happening in secret. Before you've told anyone about the pregnancy, even, so they're already sort of perhaps happening in secret. But even beyond that, it's an unpleasant topic. It's a difficult topic. It's one that isn't necessarily something that you're going to shout from the rooftops, you know. So, and I think there is that just societal approach to miscarriage and baby loss that is a bit more sweep it under the carpet and move on almost. So I think there's that battle to overcome, just in general, from the topic itself and what's happened in and of itself. I think then when you look at the male perspective specifically, I think men generally are again, going more general to start with, are less inclined to talk about difficult things, which leads to things getting bottled up and dealt with, as you say, silently. But also there's a very large perceivable imbalance, if you like, through the experience between what the men go through and what the women go through. There's no physical consequences for me from my wife having been through a miscarriage. There's no ongoing physical issues. There's no ongoing treatment needed. I haven't carried the baby in the first place. All of that creates just an instant sort of imbalance. So there's already a focus on my wife, on the woman in the situation, which is perfectly understandable. Like the focus is, there's potential health risks. There's a physical struggle going on here. We need to sort this out as a priority. And so from the outset, you as the man become part of that sort of support team, helping your partner through the physical implications. And I think it's very easy for that to then just roll in to then the aftermath and the emotional side of things. You sort of carry on the role that you've already taken on, if that makes sense. And then in general, I think within relationships and within society, there's that expectation of the man is the strong supporting one, and if I'll be strong, I'll be all right, and we'll just get on with it and we'll muddle through. So hopefully that that provides some basis for discussion. But I guess looking at my experience personally, I think that's exactly what it was. I think I always think of myself as a fairly level-headed and able to cope person as it is, but it was a horrible. It's the worst thing I've ever been through in my life, and there were times where you felt, I can't show this, or I can't be affected by this, because I need to just crack on and be there and do what I need to do. So, yeah. A few initial thoughts.
No, thank you for your honesty and how you've explained a lot of things there, and a lot of really valid points. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but during our fertility journey, we had 3 miscarriages. And one of those, because of the way fertility treatment's done, you can kind of get really odd timings for things. And we had a 12-week scan, and it was like a day or so just before Christmas. And we had to go Christmas Day, be with the family, knowing we'd just lost a baby, lost a miscarriage. And it was that hidden grief, and that's why it's called the silent grief, isn't it? It's I couldn't talk to anyone because I was supporting my wife. So I felt like I had to. At the same time, she wasn't ready to talk to anyone either. So, yeah, it's exactly what you said right at the beginning, mate. It's that hidden grief that's so difficult. And then on top of all the society issues around it, in terms of difficulties, just adds, isn't it? It's like a multiple layer before you can even get to the centre of the cause of the issue and start addressing it. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to kind of share in terms of the hidden grief, or the often unseen reality of miscarriage for men?
I think also just practically, there's like Ollie was saying, there's nothing that's happened to you as a man. Like physically, there's nothing that's happened to you. It's even the fertility journey for men is very, it's all in your head. It's like you're creating a baby and a family in your mind, and it's all a vision. And I think I think there are 2 types of grief. There's when you lose something you had, and then there's when you lose a project or you lose a vision. And I think miscarriage or baby loss is you lose that vision, but no one can see that. And then just practically, through any appointments you have with doctors or midwives or whatever, maybe if you've got a really supportive midwife, she might at the end of the session ask you how you are as the dad, but most of the time, you just literally won't get asked anything. The whole conversation, the whole appointment will be, rightly so from a medical perspective. The medical professional will be talking to the mother, and then you will just literally be sitting there silent, maybe chirping up with the odd question or whatever. But yeah, just practically, there is actually no support for men. It doesn't exist. Every now and again, in a certain NHS trust, there'll be a local group that's been set up that you might get offered to go to, but it's unlikely.
And even that, if you are offered something like that, there's the next challenge of actually accepting it and going to support. I mean, that's another thing for men, isn't it? Because you're almost breaking that. You've got to really face the stigma and society's view of you that you're there to support your wife. I think it is changing slowly. I mean,
I think we can. Yeah, I think we can take responsibility for that bit. I do think men can step up and share our experiences and our stories, but yeah, we can't help the fact that there is currently very little support on offer for men.
I think when I first saw the question, Kieran, why is grief so often silent, and my initial response was because men don't talk about it. As James said, it's on us as such. But I think the other thing I would add is from from the perspective of the medical profession, and there isn't necessarily, as James was saying, a huge amount of formal support there. I was very lucky that I had a couple of good friends that I spoke to about our miscarriage very early on. I know you were saying, Kieran, that you weren't, as a couple, you weren't ready to talk about it, so it sort of got held in, and I can see why you would do that. I can see why that would be the stance, but I was very fortunate that from fairly early on, I did speak to a couple of good, close friends and just put it out into the world, and got it off my chest. So if sort of harking back to your sentiment at the start of people listening and hopefully offering them some help and support, is even if it's one person that you can find, they don't have to be an expert on the topic. They don't need to be on a panel talking about miscarriage. They can just be your mate. If you can offload, it's the same. I guess it's the same with anything, isn't it? It doesn't have to be miscarriage related. If you can offload the issue and just talk through your feelings without necessarily having to burden, in my case, my wife with my problems as well, when I felt like she had enough on her plate, which is good and a good help for me.
Yeah. Me and Sean often talk about how you should give your friends the chance, because you'll be surprised on how they respond. But true friends know you and they'll respond positively, and it's a hard first step, but it's a valuable one. Just to let anyone know that is listening now, if you want to ask a question, I've opened the question box, so please feel free. You can also answer anonymously if needed, or if you'd like to. So the option's there if you want to ask a question. Toby, how did you find the whole situation affected your relationship and communication with your partner?
So to give a bit of a background before, with our journey that we had for our unsuccessful, or which led to the miscarriage, we had our first round of IVF in December 21, I think it was, which ended up being negative on test date, which is crazy because you think, go for IVF, it's going to work, all your answers are there, it's all going to be sorted for you. So that's kind of one, when it doesn't work, it's very disheartening and almost like a grief as well. We then took a bit of time off and went for our second round, which was successful. But then previous to that, we did have my partner Christina. She lost her father in October on my birthday, very suddenly. Then we also lost, just before we started our first round of IVF, we then lost Christina's auntie again to a very short illness. We wasn't too sure on why and what happened at that point. So obviously then fast forward to our second round. We was always quite open with our friends and family on, what was going through, just because it's easy to talk about things. That round was successful. We got to, I think it was 7 weeks. We told our family and friends that obviously it was successful at 5 weeks, because why wouldn't it work? It's, you're excited. Obviously, normally if you conceive naturally, you wait till the 12 weeks and make sure everything's okay. We were just so excited, we didn't want to wait. So then 2 weeks later, we had a scan. We found out we had a really slow heartbeat. Another scan the next week, still the same, but the chance of it actually being a viable pregnancy was very slim. But because it still had a heartbeat, it was still technically growing. We then had to wait another week for there to be no heartbeat. And then got told to kind of, this was the end of it. It's going to result in miscarriage, which again, so you sort of go through the whole process of, you've told people now, so now you need to tell them that it didn't work. And then we ended up having a miscarriage. So then we had to go for surgical miscarriage, which on the day was awful, because they go in and obviously, like you said, being supportive, there's nothing we can do as a man. Me being me, thought she's nil by mouth, she can't have anything, so I'll do the same. We then goes in, gets all prepped up for some surgery, and they talk about what they're going to do. And I hadn't eaten anything, and I was like, I'm going to faint here. So I nearly went, just listening to what the procedure was that they were going to go through, which wasn't horrible. They then send her down, and then obviously she's got no communication or anything. So she's gone for quite a while, and it's like 3 hours later. I'm thinking, this was a quick operation. What's going on? It's like 4 or 5 hours later, she then comes round, and we didn't realise. And she comes through, she's all good, and she's fine. And again, like you said, there's nothing you can do. You've got to support her. That miscarriage didn't then have all of it. So she then miscarried further at home. Again, was just another experience. You almost sort of dealing with things not once, twice, but almost 3 times in a way. But we're very lucky we're quite very communicative normally, but I think reflecting, obviously, when I saw the questions and everything come out about this, I thought I handled it really well, but my perception of that was completely different to the reality. I completely shut down. I just almost like buried my head in sand and just wanted to escape the reality of what was going on, which I'm not like that. I normally, if there's a problem, hit it head on, deal with it, communicate, let's get it done. But yeah, I completely sort of shut down. I think, again, it's that the grieve for something you've lost that you didn't know you had, but you want. It just completely, it's an emotion that you don't necessarily know how to deal with, because, like you said, you lose someone, you miss that person, but it's that the loss of something that you didn't have that you want is very difficult. But yeah, it was definitely a tough decision to have got, something very difficult to go through. Yeah, just being a man just makes it very difficult, because I think even that point, I got some close friends that I do speak to, but it's hard to talk about a subject when people haven't been through it. I think even just with the IVF, people don't understand the logistics and how everything works. You're trying to explain it, but again, we're not doctors. We're just giving first-hand experiences of what we go through and injections and this, that, and the other. It's quite difficult, but yeah, I think communication is very difficult, which normally really good at, but I think that it did hit home, and it was not a nice experience to have gone through something, even though it wasn't me personally, physically. It was almost heartbreak, really.
I think it's very common for men maybe to feel like they've nailed a situation where they're communicating well, but actually we have a habit of going in ourselves, and it's an internal processing. That's my personal feeling on it. But yeah, it doesn't always come out like that to the world, does it?
No. Yeah, you've got this brave face, but it's your face says one thing, but your actions and your whole demeanour is completely wrong.
I think it's important to acknowledge that. Like that is a part of the grieving process. Like not everyone is external and wants to say exactly how they're feeling and be outwards with it. It's important to take that time internally if you need it. But not everyone's perception is going to be the same as yours.
No.
Toby, how have you found that relationship's been since then? Because obviously that was a couple of years ago now, and I appreciate you're still sort of on the journey as much.
So we're definitely very vocal now. We don't tend to hide anything else. If she's having a bad day, she lets you know. I run my own business. That's high stress as well. So there's a lot of deciding factors, and since going through something so hard, you definitely get more out of it. We always said we're together, whether it's with family, without family, the whole journey throughout it. You can go, we were fine before, and obviously this stuff tests you. It's so easy to throw in the towel, but it takes two to really work on it. she definitely puts a lot more groundwork in with what I need to eat. She does all the research, which is fantastic, and some of the meal preps, which aren't so good. But yeah, I moan about the trivial little things, but I haven't had to inject myself for I don't know how many hundreds of injections she's done now, and we've definitely grown stronger, which is good. I mean, we've lost again. We've every time we sign up to a round of IVF or we get close or a sniff, someone dies or passes away. We lost my nan. We lost her best friend. We lost the dog earlier this year. You try and spin that as a positive as well. So someone's leaving to make room for us to be able to have a family, and trying to sort of spin positives on it in such difficult times. It is hard, but yeah, we're definitely stronger now than we have been before, just by going through everything together. And there's no one else I've ever done it with either, which is good. I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else.
That's amazing, mate. I think it definitely does make you stronger. It's not something you want to go through, but it definitely tests a relationship in every shape or form, because at some point the other one has to give support that they were never expecting to give,
Yeah.
But it's made me ultimately a better husband, I think, even though it was extremely difficult. But thanks for your honesty. Really, really do appreciate it. James, when your experience happened, what support helped you and what didn't? Because you've already mentioned that there was no real support out there, but in terms of, was there anything that really stood out that you thought, yes, that was helpful, and stuff that you thought, no, that didn't help at all?
I mean, I was already pretty open about, my mental health and my feelings and whatnot pre this happening, and I think that created a really strong foundation for me to feel able to talk, and not just talk, but to actually feel it all and go through it. Like I've been to therapy before. I've talked openly about my mental health. Yeah, like I was kind of already there. So I suppose in the sense I'd got ahead of it, and I'm really pleased that I'd spent the years, opening up and going to therapy and doing that sort of stuff and prioritize my mental health. So I think as like a background, I suppose just as a human and as a man, that has helped to have that, that base level, let's say, of whatever you want to call it, like resilience or just self-knowledge, just knowing what is healthy. And then I think the main thing I felt this really strong desire to kind of like own our story. I think in a world where I felt so out of control, like I just felt like I couldn't control anything, and our experience of actually losing the baby was just so, it was just grim. Like it was just the cruelest of cruel, to actually have to watch Sarah deliver a baby that we knew wasn't going to make it was just, it was just hell, just literally hell on earth. And all those feelings of like, actually the switch had clicked of like, oh, I want to be a dad. So I've made that decision now. I know I want to be, and I can't, and feeling very heartbroken and out of control. I think like I really needed something I could, I suppose, do. And like the only thing I felt like I could do was communicate and like tell our friends and family what was happening. Like, I was writing, like, it sounds a bit silly now. It wasn't. I'm really glad I did it. But I was almost writing like updates to people. Like I was sending broadcast WhatsApp messages. I was collating words of love and support to share with Sarah. Like I felt like really like stepping into it and actively sharing with people, it was just really helping me. It was just really helping me. It was really helping me to tell the story, to let people know what I needed, and to not kind of hide away. I just knew it would be very, very easy for me to go into a shell, and I felt like if I'd have gone into a shell, then people would have been awkward around me. Oh, I don't know, what does he want? Does he want me to not talk? Because I've experienced it with friends. Like I've got friends that have lost parents, and if they kind of retreat, then I start to feel awkward. Should I reach out, or am I making it worse? And what I've realized is through grief is everyone wants you to ask. Everyone wants to be asked. There's no, I don't think there's anyone who exists that doesn't want to be asked. Like, how's it going, mate? You know, what was their name? Or, you know, tell me about the miscarriage. Tell me about what happened. Like, I think everyone wants to talk about it because it's something important to you. So, I suppose I kind of set the tone quite early on, and that really, really helped. And I think that's something that all men can do. I really do. I think, like, yes, I know we've grown up with this conditioning around men not talking, and it's a bit of like it's a narrative that's been, you know, placed on us. But actually, like, we're all capable of changing that in our family, in our community, in our friendships. Like, we can all share our stories and our experiences. I know it's not always easy, but we can do it. So that was probably the most helpful thing I did. Did seek some more like tailored support. We found a charity that was very specific to what we were going through. It's called ARC, which is Antenatal Results and Choices. It's a charity that literally exists for if you have a 20-week scan and you get some results that you're not expecting, you can call them. So we called them and spoke to their like helpline. And then I think another thing that like really helped was to actually receive help and let people help, because again, I think it's really easy to be stubborn and try and do it all yourself. I mean, I was like calling my mum and asking her to like bring food round because we didn't really want to leave the house. I was, you know, and it just like I was willingly receiving it. I think that really helped. And then, you know, the one that I think is difficult depending on your circumstances is time. I work for myself. I run my own businesses, and I was able to just down tools. So I had quite a lot of time off. But that's probably the one where I hear really different experiences for men in either miscarriage or any form of pregnancy loss or baby loss. Like, some men are able to take a really decent amount of time off, and others have like shocking experiences where employers are just, you know, not clued up to what men experience when it comes to this. So and time obviously is a massive healer. Like, it gives you time to grieve, to feel it all, to, depending where you're at with your miscarriage or your baby loss, like, certain people want to memorialize and remember in different ways. I mean, we you know, we had a funeral, we spread ashes, we did all of that. And you know, you can do the same no matter what stage you lose a baby or a pregnancy. So time is obviously very helpful to allow you to grieve, literally, and spend time together. I think the other thing I did that was helpful was I was very aware that Sarah, my wife, had it worse than me. You know, and I know it's not a competition, but it, like, women do have it worse. So let's just get it straight. But I still didn't use that as an excuse to not share how I was feeling with her. I just felt like, you know, she can handle it. Like, and actually, yeah, just because I'm being vulnerable doesn't mean I'm also not being there for her. Like, I can be both. So, you know, I wasn't afraid to to kind of lay it all out with her as well. And then just to finish off my ramble, probably like I found a lot of what's the word, peace and, I don't know, acceptance or understanding in like poetry and music and nature. Like, I just think they helped me answer some of the questions that in this situation are pretty unanswerable. Like, it doesn't take a great philosopher to suddenly be asking yourself some pretty big questions going through all this, like, why me, why now, what is life, does God exist? And I know I'm going down like a really, but that's where I went. I'm like, I went fully off the map, and so reading poetry and listening to music, angry music, sad music, and it was winter for us, and just watching the leaves fall off the trees and the nights go dark, I also found really cathartic.
That's, thank you for the answer, because it was a very thorough one. I do think there's a lot to be said for taking control, even if perceived control, because sometimes you feel like, especially in a situation like miscarriage and baby loss, you don't have control over it, but you can control how you respond to some things and try and lay a path to feel better. We talked about poetry and things like that. Were they things that you were already interested in, or did you find a new interest in those?
I mean, like I said, I was kind of already, as you might be able to tell, like I'm already that way inclined, I suppose. Like, I'd already been writing openly about mental health. I suppose I'm like a deep guy. So I was kind of already there, but I just went deeper, I suppose. Like, I think, and people, again, I think because I opened the door, and for example, at a certain point, we shared our story on social media. Like, that's what Sarah and I decided to do. And then I just think that like opened the floodgates to receive from people. So, like, I remember one of Sarah's cousins who lives in like Australia, who I've never spoken to, it's given me shivers to even think about it. She sent me a poem one day, like one of her favorite poems by Mary Oliver. It's called, actually don't know what it's called. But it's very good. And like, it just hit me like a train, because she sent me this poem, and I'm like, I'll try and dig it out in a second, but it just hit me like a train, and in a good way, like obviously in a tough way, but in a good way. And I think that's because of the sharing, and obviously at times you've got to be careful, like you don't go into oversharing mode, especially on social media. It can easily be done, but in that sense, like, that's where I think social media can be an amazing resource. Obviously, it can also be a difficult place as well. And in the months that followed, I think I then deleted all my social media, because I was like, I don't need to see, mates I went to school with putting photos of newborn babies up. Like, I'm not here for that at the moment. So it swings and roundabouts with social media, but I'll try and dig that point.
That point around having shared, sort of opening the floodgates, is really sort of resonates, because I think once I've never really been on social media, but we were, as I say, we were sort of fairly open with friends and family, and as time went on, I've become a lot more comfortable just mentioning it and telling people in conversation, just in passing, if it seems relevant. Oh, we had a miscarriage. And off the back of that, firstly, it was something that you mentioned earlier about everyone wants to be asked. A few months after we'd had our miscarriage, or perhaps a year or so afterwards, my best mate and his wife were going through IVF, which, as Toby said before, unless you've done it and you've seen it, you don't realise quite how complex and full on it is, which fortunately we haven't, but as I say, very close friends. And I could see from a distance that it was tough. And I'd have the odd conversation, how's things going? Yeah, a bit shit, but getting on with it. And you sort of leave it there. And we were then out together one evening and on a bit of a pub crawl, and on the walk from one of the first pubs, I sort of said, how are you getting on? And he said, oh yeah, all right. And I said, yeah, but come on, what's going on? And we were then sort of an hour talking about the ins and outs and these injections and these hormones. And this is how long between this and that. And I could see in my mate almost the relief by the end of the conversation, because I don't think he'd had that conversation with anyone really, other than his wife. And as you say, you're very much in it together. So
yeah.
Sorry, Toby, I don't know if you.
No, that's right. That's just a.
All right. Yeah, no. That point really sort of resonated. I was going to say something else as well, but I've lost my train of thought now. But
it's definitely one of those situations that people do mirror how you, in terms of fertility as well, and any difficult situation, people mirror how you react to it. If you are, open but not in your face about it, like this has happened to us, people generally will mirror that, won't they? They'll talk to you and ask you the questions that you want. And you said it perfectly, James. When you hide away, people will hide away from you. Like, they won't want that engagement. And it's the most natural thing to do sometimes, but that brave foot forward and just putting it out there gives people a bit more understanding of how to respond to the situation. James, you spoke briefly about discussions about cousins contacting you. I'm just wondering how others found discussing it with family, because that in itself is another tricky thing. I think, Toby, you mentioned briefly about having to explain what happened to family. But I'm just wondering, Ollie, how did that unravel for you? What was your experience of speaking specifically to family? Because I think that's what people find most difficult, maybe initially.
Yeah, I think, and probably echoing some things that have been said before, I think my role became very much a practical one, and almost, as James said, almost the messenger. Certainly in the very early stages, that was very much my job, was making sure everyone knew what was going on and were kept in the loop. So it became very much, for me, almost a slightly desensitized process. I was doing a job rather than telling mine and Amy's family about a really difficult thing that we were going through. It became very, very practical and very pragmatic. I think I mentioned on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, Kieran, that we went into hospital, I think it was on a Tuesday evening, had an overnight, and was sort of confirmed the next morning, yes, it's definitely a miscarriage. And these are the next steps. So I had a round of about 4 or 5 phone calls, getting around everyone to let them all know what was happening. And then it was the 6th phone call, which was to a very good friend of mine who I work with, basically to let him know that I wasn't going to be at work today and probably not tomorrow. And that was the point at which I broke down, and I was less than 10 seconds into the conversation, and I was just a complete mess on the end of the phone. And it just, I hadn't really reflected on it until we had our conversation a couple of weeks ago, Kieran. And in hindsight, it's quite a strange thing. Like, why didn't I cry when I spoke to my mum? Why didn't I cry when I spoke to my dad or Amy's parents? But it's almost that contrast. It's like I'm here for these people, therefore I have to be practical. But then this next person potentially is here for me, so the roles get reversed. So it's certainly the family versus friends bit is an interesting one. We had just made it past our 12-week scan, so we had sort of told everyone in the previous week or so, and had to very quickly turn that on its head. And that was the point, actually, I was going to, when Toby mentioned it earlier, sort of popped into my head. You said you told people at 5, 6, 7 weeks.
5 weeks, yeah.
Would you do it? Would you do it differently in hindsight?
Yes, I think it comes down to transparency again. I think because when you're so open at the very beginning, and people know you've got the 2-week wait, and until you can test, and then it's almost going through infertility takes away everything about the excitement and the pregnancy test and all the rest of it. So the amount of excitement that you've got to be able to share good news as opposed to such negative or bad news, or it's not worked again, we're going back to it and my life's still on hold, I can't come to this stag do, that wedding, we're not drinking for this. And you're always, I suppose, you're always making excuses as to why you're not living, but you're kind of, you're just coasting through everything. So again, like going back to the family, I can't remember how we told everybody. It's kind of a bit of a blur when it comes to how it, because I was riding on that high, and then almost a week or so later say, actually no, it didn't work. It's a difficult. Yeah, I can't recall that at all. I mean, we haven't got a massive family. It's quite a relatively small family on both sides. It's just, yeah, it's nice to share positivity as opposed to negativity, and almost explain why you're not doing what you're doing or why you're doing what you're doing. Because again, unless you've been through it, you don't know. Why can't you drink this and the other? Because we're trying to get good sperm and all the rest of it is, you're always kind of on the back foot, but on the front foot to give the reasons why as well. And obviously some people do understand it, and it's really easy to talk about it, but trying to explain it to some people when they don't understand it is very difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important to mention here is that you have to do what's right for you, not what you think's right for everyone else. Like if you need to wait to tell someone, you wait because you need that bit of time. We were like that with miscarriages, but also just generally fertility. Like we waited sometimes a bit longer than we were even past the 12 weeks because we were concerned. But yeah, don't feel like you have to please other people. Do what you need to do for yourself. I think that's one of the strongest things you can do, especially in this difficult situation. I'm conscious of time because we've taken up quite a lot of your evenings already. So we'll start wrapping things up because the last question that I've got, we've kind of covered through certain things. But we haven't had any like live questions come in, but even the pre-submitted ones, we've kind of covered those. But what I would like to do right at the end is just one bit of advice from each of you as a takeaway for anyone that's listening to this and they're struggling with a miscarriage or a baby loss. Just give them one bit of advice or something to take away from this. Let's go with Ollie first, because I've always chosen you first, Ollie.
I think something I've learnt since, which I wasn't at all aware of beforehand, and I think that's one of the hardest things about miscarriage is that the awareness, there's awareness like what we're doing now. And one thing, so I'm going off on little tangents on myself, but we speak a lot about, or we have spoken a lot about sort of potential lack of support for the aftermath of miscarriage. From a healthcare perspective, I think that's a valid point. I think it's important to say that there are fantastic organisations that are doing incredible things to help. Kieran and Sean being a good example of those, but in the miscarriage space particularly, there's Tommy's, Sands, Worst Girl Gang Ever. There are some fantastic groups out there, and they're doing incredible things to help people, and there is support there. But I think prior to a miscarriage happening, there is very little awareness of miscarriage. It's not something that we learn about in sex education classes at school. that's all about getting pregnant, and it's very easy to get pregnant, so be very careful. But there's very little about miscarriage itself. So when it does happen, it really does hit you like a train. So as I say, I've tangented myself, but that's what I was going to say. So it's very easy. It's almost like this. The world of miscarriage is like a little subculture, and it exists away from the mainstream. But once you realise that it exists, you realise that you are one of many, which doesn't make what you're going through any less difficult necessarily, or any less, as James said, cruel. But it's not just you, and there are people out there, and I guess that then leads on to what my piece of advice would be, is that just find someone that you can talk to, whether that's through a forum like this, like Tommy's, or whether it's just a good friend who you can offload to. I think that's got to be particularly in a circumstance where you feel like offloading your problems onto your partner, who already has enough problems of her own, which I think are very valid emotions to have. Not wanting to burden someone who's already going through enough. Just finding that outlet, whatever it may be, was the most valuable thing from my perspective.
Yeah, that's perfect advice, buddy. I think it's really valid advice. I think it would be a shame not to mention what you are doing at the moment, though, at this moment, this challenge that you've got. I think it's a perfect time to mention it. So just a brief discussion of this crazy challenge you've got yourself into. So
thought we were going to have one day without talking about it, but today probably wasn't going to be that day. So yeah, off the back of a lot of what we've spoken about this evening and the experiences that we've seen amongst friends, I sort of decided to do something productive, positive, to try and help others to share their stories, but also to try and raise some money to help people going forward. So over the course of next year, starting on the last Saturday of 2025, I'm going to be running 39 marathons in consecutive weeks, one a weekend, through to the pretty much the end of September, one in each county of England, and along the way we're going to be running with someone in each county who has had an experience of baby loss or miscarriage of some description, to sort of trying to create community awareness, storytelling around the various issues that relate to baby loss and miscarriage. Create some awareness, give something for people to listen to and to hold on to, and also obviously in the meantime hopefully raise a shed load of cash for Tommy's, who are a fantastic charity and organisation in this space.
It's an amazing project, mate, and I'm looking forward to it's unfolding and watching it unfold, and it's going to be an interesting journey in itself.
Yeah,
a few splinters, blisters, and sort of
interesting is the word, Kieran. Yeah.
So let's go, Toby, quick. Toby, what bit of advice would you give someone who's listening to this and wants? Yeah, a bit of.
Very difficult to top that. But yeah, someone once told me to put your own oxygen mask on first. And as someone that does everything for everybody else all the time and put myself last a lot of the time, without yourself, there is nothing else. You know, you've got to look after yourself. So I think, yeah, talking and just being really open and honest with your emotions and how you feel, what you're going through. I mean, I think talking to a complete stranger and just being able to talk at them is very good, and there's no judgment, or like you said, talking to good friends who understand it and who are going to not judge, because there's nothing to be judged for, but just have a beer, have a walk, run, just look after yourself, which is the most important thing. And obviously, you've got your partner and everything that you need to be closely followed by. But yeah, you're no good to her if your oxygen mask comes down and you put hers on first. You're dead. If you put yours on first to help her, you're good. So yeah, I think we'll go with that. Just be open and be able to talk. And
yeah, I think that's great advice, mate. You've got to look after yourself.
Really good way of putting it.
Yeah, if you're not healthy, others can't rely on you. Great advice. James, what would be your little takeaway, bit of advice to anyone out there that needs that little bit of support?
Yeah, similar really. I think at an absolute minimum, you have to tell your partner how you're feeling. Like that, I think at an absolute minimum, because that will save your relationship as well. Like, unfortunately, there are a lot of people whose relationships break down as a result of these experiences, which I think is really heartbreaking as well, doubly heartbreaking. So I think that at an absolute minimum, go through it with your partner and be in it with them and feel it alongside them, and have different experiences, but go through it together. And then speak to one other person wherever you find that person, whether it's a charity helpline or a friend or someone at work. It doesn't really matter. I think at an absolute minimum, your partner, and then one other. If I was just being, two people, and then obviously more on top of that ideally, but at an absolute minimum, so your partner and one other person.
Yeah, perfect advice, mate. You mentioned ARC earlier. Is there anything else you want to champion?
Nothing to plug really, other than honestly, I think if you're a man and you're experiencing this, I think we need as many men to step up and create support and create awareness and share their story. I think it's on us to change male culture. So I think if you're willing and ready and able, take up arms and do it yourself. Build something, make something, start a community, do a podcast, tell your story on social media. We can all make a difference genuinely. Help someone else. This is a cultural wave that I think we're all part of genuinely. So, I think have that in your mind as well. It's not just about you; it's about other men that are just going to go through this fact, and we can all help make it easier for each other.
Yeah, great. Well, it's definitely not something that's going away, is it? We need to do that cultural wave, as you said. Thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate the time. In line with this the panel, as some of you will know, we have recently started WhatsApp chats as part of our support network. Tomorrow, we're going to be launching a new chat, which will be miscarriage and baby loss group chat for anyone that's struggling and needs that little bit of support. Just wants general conversation about it. It's going to be there on the Nexus community. So if you want to join, go to www.nexusfertility.com and follow the links, and you can join the WhatsApp groups. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope you all have a lovely evening, or what's left of it, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Ollie, whilst I've got you, mate.
Yeah.
I'm in Staffordshire, so I'm not far from you. So I'd be keen to do a bit of running with you next year.